Hey guys, tonight we drift into one of those half-forgotten evenings that history itself barely dares to record. You know, the kind of night where shadows are thicker than usual, and every creak of a wooden shutter makes you wonder if someone is listening. This is the night before Julius Caesar's last day on Earth. And let me just say up front, you probably won't survive this one either. Not because daggers are aimed at you, but because I plan to lull you in such a heavy state of drowsy, historical suspense that your eyelids might just collapse before the story's over. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment telling me where you are and what time it is for you right now. I love knowing who's lying in bed in Sydney, while someone else is curled up on a couch in Toronto. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk the streets of Rome, and it's late. The kind of late where the city hasn't completely fallen asleep, but there's a stillness that makes every echo of footsteps bounce just a little louder. You pass by torch-lit alleys where taverns are emptying, drunk soldiers staggering home, and washerwomen throwing buckets of water onto the cobbles. Rome never truly sleeps. It only drifts half awake, like some beast that always hears the rustle of prey. As you move through the Forum, you notice the statues looming above you, ghostly white against the dark sky. There's a wind carrying the smell of smoke from countless hearths. It's not dramatic, not a bonfire of rebellion, just the ordinary fires of Romans preparing for another morning. And yet, you feel it. The air is tight, a little electric, as if something in the marrow of the city knows tomorrow will not be like other tomorrows. A stray dog pads by, ribs showing, and growls low in its throat at nothing in particular. Romans always feared omens, and tonight they're everywhere. The dog refuses to enter the shadow cast by Pompey's theater, where Caesar is scheduled to meet tomorrow. Historians still argue whether animals were actually behaving oddly that night, or whether chroniclers just embroidered the story after the fact. Either way, you can't help but shiver when the dog suddenly bolts, as if chasing something unseen. You trudge further down the stone road, sandals scraping. In the distance, you hear the steady creak of wagons bringing grain into the city. Caesar's reforms have made bread cheaper, feeding thousands, but not everyone's happy about it. Some senators mutter that he's buying loyalty with loaves. Others say he's just practical, feeding Rome the way a shepherd feeds sheep. You wonder which version will matter when the knives come out. Passing by a small shrine, you see offerings, tiny clay figures, a bronze coin, even what looks like a withered piece of bread. They're left for Fortuna, the goddess of luck. Ordinary people pray she'll protect them through tomorrow's day of Senate business. You can almost hear them whispering, "Fortuna, turn your will gently." Above the rooftops, the stars are sharp. Jupiter gleams, the king of the gods, glaring down like he's about to write something permanent into the sky. You think of Caesar himself, so often compared to gods, and how he once claimed descent from Venus. That's the thing about Rome. Half the city believes its leaders are divine, while the other half can't wait to drag them down into the dust. You slip by the marketplace. The stalls are shut, canvas tied down, but the smell of olives and fish lingers. Somewhere, a child cries and is hushed quickly. Mothers fear restless spirits, and this night feels restless indeed. A baker's boy, unable to sleep, is peering up at the stars with flowers still in his hair. You nod as you pass, and though he doesn't answer, you catch that wide-eyed look. It's the look of someone who doesn't know why he's nervous, only that he is. Rome has always been noisy. Hammers, gossip, clashing swords from training yards. But tonight the city hums with a strange quiet. Even the Tiber seems to flow more softly, as though the river itself doesn't want to draw attention. You pause on the bridge, leaning against cool stone, watching the black water slip beneath you. Somewhere downstream, a torch sputters and dies, swallowed whole by the dark. And then you catch a whisper from two passing men. They don't see you. They're too intent on each other. One says, "Tomorrow, he sits at Pompey's theater." The other replies, "If the gods wish it." The words vanish into the night, but they leave behind a weight heavier than any silence. Mainstream historians tell us Caesar's assassination was planned meticulously over days, even weeks, but here's the quirky tidbit. Some accounts claim ordinary citizens heard rumors the night before, like echoes running through the alleys. Was it gossip, or was the city itself carrying the plot in its breath? Nobody can be sure. As you leave the bridge and wander deeper toward the Palatine, the streets narrow. Lanterns burn low outside doorways. A woman sprinkles water across her threshold, muttering against bad spirits. A guard yawns at his post, leaning too heavily on his spear. Rome is bracing, though it doesn't yet know for what. The closer you get to Caesar's residence, the more you sense it. Tonight is a fulcrum, and tomorrow history will tilt. But for now, the city just hums under the stars, pretending nothing is amiss, pretending dawn will be ordinary. You step across the threshold of Caesar's home, and it's like the noise of Rome muffles itself the moment you enter. The walls breathe in lamplight, shadows stretching across frescoes of gods and victories that look a little too smug now. You pause, letting your eyes adjust, and you realize you're intruding on the private space of the most powerful man alive, who, by this time tomorrow, won't be alive at all. Inside, servants move quietly, bare feet scuffing the floor, as if making sound might wake something fragile. A boy balances a tray with watered wine. His hands tremble so much you think he might spill. Is he nervous because he serves a dictator, or because even the lowliest staff feel the strange heaviness pressing down tonight? Historians still argue whether the atmosphere in Caesar's household was genuinely tense or whether later writers retrofitted the drama. Either way, your ears pick up the rhythm of hushed words behind doors, like a hive buzzing low. You slip down a corridor and find yourself at the edge of Caesar's chamber. The heavy curtain sways just enough for you to glimpse him reclining on his couch, not asleep, not even close. His hand fidgets with a scroll, though he isn't reading. His eyes roam the ceiling as if the plaster itself might offer answers. He's been unwell lately. Something about dizzy spells and a weakness that makes his enemies whisper epilepsy. Quirky tidbit. Ancient Romans actually thought seizures sometimes marked divine favor, as if the gods were briefly grabbing hold of you. Not exactly the diagnosis you want when you're trying to project invincibility. Beside him sits Calpurnia, his wife, her face drawn with worry. She murmurs, urging him to rest, recounting dreams that curdle the air. In one, she saw their house collapse in fire. In another, Caesar lay bleeding in her arms. You'd think a hardened soldier who crossed the Rubicon would laugh it off, but he doesn't. Instead, he strokes her arm distractedly, his face set, like he wants to believe her, but refuses to show it. Dreams are dreams, he mutters, though you catch the tiny twitch at the corner of his mouth. The chamber smells faintly of olive oil and damp stone. A draft snakes in from the window, carrying a faraway sound. Maybe a dog howling, maybe just your imagination layering omen on omen. You lean closer, hearing Caesar shift, restless. He sits upright, pours himself wine, and stares into it like he's searching for a reflection of tomorrow. In the courtyard beyond, torches sputter. Two guards whisper, one rubbing his eyes, the other fiddling with a lucky charm carved from bone. They gossip about omens, a horse refusing food, a bird shrieking in daylight. Rome collects omens the way a child collects stones, and tonight they pile high. Caesar finally rises, pacing. You trail him in silence as he drags his fingers along the wall, lost in thought. His toga drapes loosely, making him look less like a conqueror, more like a man weighed down by choices. He murmurs something under his breath. Names perhaps? Brutus? Cassius? You can't be sure. The household around him pretends not to notice, but their shoulders are tense, eyes flicking to one another. Historians debate whether Caesar suspected betrayal that night. Some claim he had a list of conspirators in his possession, a parchment he tucked away and chose not to act on. Others dismiss it as legend, insisting he went into the Senate blind. You watch him now and wonder, does he know? Does he choose to ignore it out of arrogance or resignation? You follow him into the peristyle, the open-air garden in the heart of his home. Moonlight spills across marble, illuminating statues of gods who look as if they're holding their breath. Caesar lowers himself onto a bench. He closes his eyes, breathing deep, perhaps imagining battlefields where clarity was simpler. Enemies in front of you, swords drawn, no whispers in the dark. Calpurnia joins him, wrapping her shawl tighter. She repeats her plea, "Stay home tomorrow." He places a hand on hers, firm but not cruel, and shakes his head. You can almost hear his thoughts. If he yields to dreams, to superstition, what does that make him? Rome's ruler who trembles at shadows? No, better to face the Senate, even if the walls themselves lean closer to listen. The night crawls on. Servants bring another lamp. The flame flutters uncertainly. Caesar finally reclines again, but sleep doesn't come easy. His breath hitches, his body jerks. Perhaps he drifts into uneasy dreams, or perhaps he lies awake rehearsing speeches he'll never get to finish. You watch the lines on his face harden, softening only when exhaustion finally pins him down. And so you stand in the chamber's stillness, knowing the dawn will not be kind. The household stirs less now, like the whole villa holds its breath waiting. Somewhere in the rafters, a sparrow rustles its wings, restless, as if it too knows what sunrise will bring. The hours tilt deeper into night, and you find yourself wandering back out into the open courtyard, as if the stone columns themselves are pulling you along. The air has cooled, settling heavy across the rooftops, but with it comes a pulse of unease. Tonight is not a night of quiet stars. It is a night of whispers, carried on the faintest breezes, muttering warnings that no one quite wants to say aloud. You look up, and sure enough, the moon seems hazy, haloed by mist that shouldn't be there. A servant hurries past, nearly dropping his pitcher, muttering about how the moon looks wrong. To Romans, the skies were a giant announcement board. Every shadow, every streak of fire across the heavens meant something. And historians still argue whether a solar eclipse near this period played into Rome's fear-laden imagination. Whether or not the timing lines up perfectly, one thing is certain. Omens carried weight, especially when the knives of politics already glinted just beneath the surface. You slip back toward the outer streets, blending into the city's dark veins. Torches spit sparks, casting flickering light across cracked stone. The walls of temples loom above you, carvings of Jupiter, Mars, and Venus glaring as though silently gossiping. You pass a small crowd huddled near a shrine, priests in rough robes chanting softly, tossing herbs into a brazier. The smoke coils upward, bitter and sweet, and the crowd clings to the words, Prodigia Avertite. Turn away these portents. One priest drops a small bird onto the coals, a squeal cut short, and the smell is sharper than incense. Romans didn't shy from sacrifices, especially when they thought the gods were sending cryptic messages through everything from lightning bolts to the intestines of sheep. Quirky tidbit: some soothsayers once claimed to divine the future by watching chickens eat, or rather, fail to eat. If the sacred chickens weren't hungry, well, that was basically a cosmic red flag. And believe it or not, one story insists that the night before Caesar's last day, sacred birds refused to touch their grain. If chickens skipping dinner sounds trivial to you, remember, for Romans, that was practically an alarm siren. You walk past a tavern that hasn't quite given up on the evening. A few men lean against the doorway, their voices hushed. One insists he saw a phantom figure drifting through the forum, wearing a crown of laurel and dripping blood. His friend scoffs but pulls his cloak tighter all the same. Fear is contagious, and tonight the whole city is infected. You edge toward the Capitoline Hill, where shadows of temples stack high upon one another. From here, you can see much of Rome spread out, torchlight winking in clusters like nervous fireflies. The Tiber snakes black and silent, as though it too has swallowed its voice. You imagine senators in their private homes, pacing floors, weighing loyalty against ambition. Some sharpen daggers, while others sharpen excuses. And yet, here you are, caught in the middle of omens and whispers, feeling how history itself leans forward, restless. You stumble on a group of women at the base of the hill. They clutch one another, muttering about strange noises, trumpets in the sky, phantom hoofbeats echoing through the cobblestones. Historians might dismiss such accounts as exaggeration, but for the people living them, those eerie sounds are enough to set skin crawling. You remember Calpurnia's dreams and can't help but connect the dots. Dreams, birds, halos around the moon. It all piles into a mosaic of dread. You notice, too, the silence of the cats that usually slink across the alleys. It's as though the animals have staged a quiet strike, refusing to move until the world shifts tomorrow. Back near Caesar's villa, a figure lingers in the shadows, wrapped in a dark cloak. He's no servant. You can feel the weight of calculation in the way he stands. When footsteps echo too close, he vanishes into the gloom. Was he a spy, a messenger, or just another sleepless Roman caught in the undertow of dread? The night won't tell. You pause at the edge of the garden wall. Inside, Caesar stirs again, tossing as if the dreams keep chasing him. You hear Calpurnia's voice, urgent, insistent, pleading once more for him to stay home. But Caesar resists. He's faced Gaulish warriors, Pompey's legions, and political storms that would flatten lesser men. To him, ignoring superstition is almost a point of pride. Still, the tiniest hesitation slips into his silence before he rolls away from her. The wind shifts, carrying with it the smell of smoke and something metallic. Maybe the blacksmith's working late, maybe imagination supplying the scent of blood early. Either way, the night feels less like hours passing and more like a stage being set. Rome is a theater, and tomorrow the curtain rises on a play everyone claims to know, but no one is ready to watch. By the time the lamps sputter and the horizon begins to soften with the first hint of dawn, you've seen enough omens to last a lifetime. The city feels strung tight, a bow waiting for the arrow, and you know the shot will come soon. The first pale streaks of dawn begin to sneak across the tiled roofs, and you feel Rome stretch itself awake like some massive animal shaking off the night. The air is cool, sharper now, and you walk through streets where shutters creak open and bakers drag sacks of flour into their shops. Smoke curls lazily upward from early hearths, the kind that promises bread within the hour. It's an ordinary Roman morning on the surface, but beneath, everything quivers with the knowledge that today will be anything but ordinary. You drift alongside a senator's litter as slaves hoist it down the street, the man inside muttering to himself. His lips move with the kind of intensity that makes you wonder if he's rehearsing a speech or steadying his nerves. He grips a roll of parchment tight, maybe legislation, maybe the words he'll never have the courage to say aloud. Every so often he peers out, eyes darting like a thief's. His toga looks immaculate, but the sweat at his hairline betrays him. As the city stirs, you catch fragments of conversation. Two merchants argue over prices, but one suddenly lowers his voice to whisper, "Did you hear? The omens last night were terrible." His friend shrugs, mutters that omens are for peasants. But then he pauses, frowning, because even he can't quite shake the feeling that the gods are restless. Quirky tidbit: Romans often kept household gods called Laras, tiny figurines that guarded the family. On mornings like this, many citizens would offer little cakes or wine, hoping their miniature protectors would keep catastrophe outside the door. You imagine half of Rome doubling their offerings today. Closer to the forum, the noise swells. Sellers set up their stalls with extra energy, eager to catch early buyers. Somewhere a man strums a lyre, badly, as if he's trying to drown out his own dread. A donkey brays, loud and insistent, startling a child who clings to her mother's tunic. The ordinary and the extraordinary mesh together, creating a strange kind of tension, like the city is playing background music for a scene it doesn't realize is about to unfold. You push past the bustle towards Caesar's residence again, where the household has already begun its morning rituals. Servants sweep floors, polish bronze, prepare garments. Yet their movements are stiff, like actors sticking to a script they no longer believe in. Calpurnia lingers in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed from a sleepless night. She clutches Caesar's arm once more, begging him not to leave. You watch the scene repeat itself like a ritual. Her fear, his reassurance, the silence that hangs heavier than any words. And here comes a historical fact that slices into the moment. According to Plutarch, Calpurnia's dream the night before was vivid. She saw the roof of their house collapse and her husband stabbed in her arms. She begged him to remain home, and for a moment, Caesar agreed. That flicker of hesitation might have changed everything, except fate or stubbornness or pride tilted the scale back. Caesar paces, caught between superstition and statesmanship. To stay home is to look weak. To go is to prove he bows to nothing. You feel his struggle like a storm cloud. When his attendant arrives with the day's schedule, Caesar finally waves off his wife's protests. He mutters something about the Senate needing him, about the Republic watching. The words are firm, but his eyes betray the faintest shadow of doubt. As the household prepares, a friend arrives, Decimus, one of the conspirators. He strides in with convincing cheer, scolding Caesar for dithering. He jokes that the senators will think him arrogant if he doesn't attend. His laughter rings too loud, too polished. You can see the strings of manipulation tugging at Caesar's resolve. Historians still argue whether Decimus was the one who sealed the dictator's decision that morning, but standing here, you'd swear you can see the hook sink in. The city outside thrums louder now, carts rattling across stones, citizens flowing toward their errands. You notice how the roads seem to funnel toward Pompey's theater, as if all paths conspire to deliver Caesar into the trap. You walk in step with him as he finally dons his toga, straightens his posture, and steps into the daylight. The crowd outside cheers, some genuinely, some out of habit. To them, he is still the man who triumphed in Gaul, the man who forgave enemies, the man who could shape Rome with a word. To others, he is the tyrant who dares to crown himself. The irony is thick enough to taste. He walks among both loyalty and loathing, and he cannot tell the difference. The litter is prepared. Caesar pauses, his eyes lifting briefly to the sky. The sun cuts through clouds, blinding and sharp. You wonder if he feels it, the invisible weight of history pressing down on his shoulders, the sense that his story is about to be inked in blood. He exhales, climbs aboard, and gives the command to move. As the bearers lift, the crowd parts, murmuring, cheering, whispering. Some reach out to touch the hem of his toga, as though brushing against him might grant them favor or luck. Others simply watch, silent, unreadable. You trail beside the procession, heart heavy, knowing where the road leads. The wheels of the world are turning, and there's no stopping them now. The procession winds slowly toward Pompey's theater, and you feel the city itself tightening like a knot. Sunlight spreads fully now, burning off the chill of night, but the warmth does nothing to ease the air. Every step, every creak of the litter's frame seems to echo with inevitability. You walk along beside Caesar, watching the crowd ebb and flow, some faces glowing with admiration, others tightening with something colder. You glance at Caesar's profile, calm, steady, as if carved from marble. Yet you've watched him pace in the night, heard the tremor in Calpurnia's voice, seen his hesitation flicker like a candle in the wind. That calm mask is an act, and perhaps even he knows it. Pride is armor, and today he wears it like a breastplate, hoping it will turn aside invisible blades. As the litter reaches the forum, voices rise. Some citizens shout blessings, others mutter prayers under their breath. A beggar thrusts out his hand. Caesar pauses long enough to toss him a coin. The gesture ripples through the crowd. Some see generosity, others see theater. Historians still argue whether these small moments of kindness were genuine or calculated, but to the man receiving the coin, it hardly matters. His belly will be less empty tonight. Closer now, the great steps of Pompey's theater loom before you. It's an odd venue for politics, a building meant for plays, not Senate business. And yet here the Senate gathers, as if fate itself chose the stage. Quirky tidbit, the statue of Pompey, Caesar's once rival, stands within, towering over the chamber. The irony is almost unbearable. Caesar entering beneath the gaze of the man he defeated, about to fall where Pompey's shadow still lingers. You trail behind as the litter stops. Caesar steps down, his sandals striking the stone with a thud that seems to reverberate far louder than it should. Senators hurry forward, their smiles tight, their greetings just a fraction too warm. They cluster close, a living tide of togas, voices overlapping in welcome. To any casual onlooker, it looks like respect. To you, it looks like wolves circling. As you follow him inside, the light shifts. The theater's interior swallows the morning sun, leaving a dim hush broken only by footsteps and murmurs. The senators press in tighter, guiding him toward the chamber. Their hands brush his shoulders, his arms, friendly, possessive, and hiding the steel beneath. You feel the trap closing, each gesture another link in the chain. Caesar pauses, glancing up at Pompey's statue. Perhaps he feels the irony too, the cruel joke of dying beneath the stone gaze of a man whose death paved his own rise. For the briefest instant, his face softens as though he finally glimpses what history is writing in real time. And then the circle tightens. Historians debate whether Caesar recognized Brutus in that final moment, whether the famous words "Et tu, Brute" ever truly left his lips. Some say he gasped them, some say he said nothing, only pulled his toga over his face. But standing here, in this suspended breath before the first blade falls, you realize the words don't matter. What matters is the silence, the inhale before history snaps forward. And then you step back. You don't follow him into the chamber. You don't need to. You already know how the story ends. The sound of sandals scuffing, the rustle of togas, the faint clatter of a hidden dagger. These are enough to tell you that the curtain is about to rise. Rome itself holds its breath, and tomorrow's textbooks prepare their ink. You drift outside, leaving the theater behind, letting the scene dissolve in your wake. The city still bustles, bread still bakes, children still run, merchants still haggle. For them, the world hasn't shattered yet. But for you, with tomorrow already alive in your memory, the air is thicker, heavier, carrying the weight of blood not yet spilled. And so the night before has slipped fully into morning, leaving you on the edge of history, teetering between what was and what will be. You've walked Rome's streets, seen Caesar's unease, heard the omens, brushed against the hands of those who will shape destiny. Now, as you step back into your own room, your own bed, you carry the hush of that final night with you, as if the echoes of Rome's whispers are still trailing in your ears. The lamps dim, the crowd fades, and the story folds itself closed. Let the weight of marble columns and the murmur of ancient voices soften in your mind. Let the edges of Rome blur into shadow until only quiet remains. And now, as the tale lingers in the silence, let yourself settle into the softness around you. Imagine the marble streets of Rome fading far into the distance, the clamor of voices dissolving into nothing more than a faint hum. The tension of the night before Caesar's final day slips from your shoulders, replaced by the calm of knowing the story has already been told, the ending already written. Your breath slows, steady and deep, like the gentle rhythm of footsteps fading down an empty corridor. The images of statues and torchlight drift away, leaving only the glow of quiet. Even the omens fall silent now, their meaning lost in the embrace of rest. So let your thoughts soften, your eyelids grow heavier, and your body sink deeper into stillness. The night before history has ended, and your night is ready to begin. Sleep folds over you like a cloak, safe and unbroken. Sweet dreams.